Pablo Torre Finds Out has exploded as a podcast. Today is his first day and its first day with The Athletic, and he started with a beast of a story that took 7 months to report, and that he was very nervous that somebody else was going to break before he reported what was in 3,487 documents. So, starting first, tell the people what it is that you reported today at 5 a.m.
Yeah, so people may recall how there's this. What is happening?
That's how we're introducing. When you drop a Pablo, when you drop a Pablo, when a Pablo drops, that's our imaging. Chris Cody has had 7 months to produce imaging for this story.
It's good, right?
And that's what he has produced. This is how we.
It's like Lance Stevenson blowing in my ear.
This is how a Pablo gets dropped. This is how we celebrate the biggest story in sports today. So tell us what it is, please.
Whoever just yelped, it's good, right? I just.
Who said that?
The sweet nothings. It's a sweet something is what I brought you guys today. 2019, the NBA investigates. Okay, how did the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard? They found no proof, right? This was something that the NBA was infuriated by around the league. It was the Lakers, it was the Raptors, everybody wondering, how did Steve Ballmer and the Clippers get Kawhi Leonard? We have an episode that explains in, I think, like 4K detail how it happened in terms of how Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, has paid Kawhi Leonard off of the books using, and this is where the story gets wild, because this is about the extension Kawhi signs in 2021, but it involves, true to the alleged setting that I'm in, 2 Harvard graduates, 2 Democratic politicians, starting what turns out to be a $2.3 billion valuated scheme around climate change and saving the planet that brings in as the following a roster of endorsers: Robert Downey Jr., Drake, Leonardo DiCaprio, Cindy Crawford, Orlando Bloom. The list goes on. What has never been reported, though, until today is the most important, most highly paid endorsement deal they signed, which was more than 4 times the combined value of every other celebrity. And that endorsement deal was signed with one of probably, I would say, the worst pitchmen when it comes to like good athletes in America. And it's Kawhi Leonard. And this was a company that was funded to the tune of $50 million by Steve Ballmer, another Harvard graduate, and the owner, of course, the richest owner in all of sports. And so we have documentation, we have 7 sources, we have a source voice modulated on tape, kind of whispering some facts into your ear if you listen on YouTube or as a podcast. It's a story that's an 80-minute documentary we made. And it's crazy. It's actually a crazy thing to sort of pour through.
Is there any proof at all that Kawhi Leonard did any work at all to earn that $28 million? Anything other than basketball, play basketball for the Clippers?
Which he's only kind of done, I would argue, the basketball part. That's my favorite part, is that typically in a story like this, you say, okay, there's no evidence, and that's a problem. Here, the absence of evidence is kind of the evidence. He was signed to a $28 million endorsement contract and did nothing. Nobody has proof of anything that he did. 0 things, no likes, no retweets, no posts, no tree plantings. This was a company that was supposed to plant trees to zero out your carbon footprint and help save the planet. Kawhi did nothing that anyone could find. There's no evidence on the internet anywhere. And that, to me, feels like all of the evidence you need in terms of this being a no-show job if you're an endorser of something, I would argue.
Pablo, part of the gall of this scam is the stupidity of it. Wouldn't it have been extremely easy just to have Kawhi film a couple of PSAs endorsing this whole project instead of doing absolutely nothing?
It's a great question that Calais Campbell has just asked, I believe, is who just asked that question. It's a really good question. There's sloppiness in this. There's sloppiness all over the place because, yes, all you had to do was do a couple of things. But this is the legend, right? Like, people are saying, you're snitching on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, to me, is not the villain of the story. Kawhi Leonard is maybe the most clear-cut example of a straight-up capitalist, right? Board man gets paid. Dude wants money. Dude doesn't want to work. He wants to get paid. And so Kawhi Leonard could have done some of that stuff to give everybody plausible deniability. He preferred not to. He signed a deal in the contract, which we have. We have the signed and executed endorsement contract. And it's Kawhi Leonard, his autograph, right next to the guy who turns out to be, by the way, the youngest speechwriter in White House history for Bill Clinton, Andre Cherny, the co-founder of Aspiration. In that contract, he has outs that our pal David Sampson poured over, in which you clearly see Kawhi was also not obligated to do anything. They just didn't count on people like me, I guess, ever caring enough to follow the clues down the rabbit hole and find out that, oh, wait, this was a job that required you to do nothing and you did nothing. And so that feels like a problem.
Gotta want to learn, gotta want to earn.
Kawhi don't want to learn. Kawhi don't want to earn.
Pablo, if they did what what Calais Campbell was suggesting, which is just, a little thing here or there for Kawhi to do, wouldn't that, if I could check the counterpoint, wouldn't that have then tipped someone off to this endorsement he's doing, and then maybe we would have found out that Ballmer was funding, and of course it's like, hey, the bell rings that, wow, that's probably not a good thing for the salary cap.
Yeah, that's also, logical question. Now, the thing about this story, though, is that Aspiration, while totally obscure until really like it goes viral this morning, they were announced to be the 23-year, $300 million plus founding sponsor of the Intuit. They were announced. We have press conference footage of Steve Ballmer sitting next to Joe Sandberg, the guy who's now pled guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud, by the way, and a 9-figure fraud as investigated by the DOJ and now still the SEC. So this was out there. It's just that nobody knew Kawhi was working for them. But Zaz, to your point, like the reason I found out about this is because in the bankruptcy filing, because the company has, of course, collapsed and it's into disgrace and financial ruin. In the bankruptcy filing, you see the list of creditors. And buried there, which was publicly available, by the way, was this line item that said $7 million outstanding to KL2 Aspire, LLC. And I looked up what that was in the California Secretary of State database, and it was, Kawhi Leonard's LLC. Interesting. I then Google, did he ever do anything for Aspiration? Because I'd never seen that. And it's weird to have Kawhi Leonard as one of your top endorsers. And there was nothing. And at that point, that's when I'm like, something doesn't add up here. And it turns out a lot didn't add up for anybody.
Pablo, this is a bombshell at the foot of the NBA right now, and the commissioner. What do you imagine the repercussion might be of this story?
Before you answer that, Pablo, let me just hear some Calais Campbell sound to see if Pablo's got it right, because he does indeed find out that that whoever that is speaking in that modulated voice sounds like Calais Campbell.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes.
Wow, I take that as a compliment as well. Calais is a hell of a player.
Well, thank you.
Sorry the Dolphins got rid of him.
Yes.
You're so friendly.
What are the repercussions going to be?
Giant. Yeah, I mean, this is the parlor game that I find absolutely fascinating, because Steve Ballmer, to reiterate, has denied any wrongdoing, didn't know about any of this, says it's provably false. I await the proof, frankly. But nonetheless, Steve Ballmer is the richest owner, not just in the NBA, but all of sports, right? He's the good guy who saved the Clippers from noted racist Donald Sterling. He has Barack Obama sitting courtside. All of this stuff means he's both powerful and a good spokesperson for the league that wants to be on the good guy side of things. But yet you have this other dynamic where Steve Ballmer, who paid for the Intuit Dome with personal private money, no public funds, right? Great on him. He has spent so much money to expand his front office because that's uncapped. Here you have the problem of why Adam Silver called in 2019, according to the Athletic report on the investigation, a cardinal sin of alleged cap circumvention, in which the NBA, per that report, had outlined possible consequences: forfeiture of draft picks, $1 million plus fines, at the most extreme end, the nullification of contracts for the players whose salaries were circumvented. So I go back to history and I'm like, what's the last time this happened? And the only analogous case in terms of documentation and salary cap circumvention was the Minnesota Timberwolves, Joe Smith, which I don't know if anybody in the container even remembers, but Joe Smith and Glenn Taylor, the owner of the T-Wolves, had worked out a side deal, and it was written on paper because they were afraid Glenn Taylor was going to die before the completion of that contract. It's a total side, fascinating story.
But this has the potential to be the biggest salary cap crime that we've seen.
Yes, $28 million. And that, by the way, for the T-Wolves in that era, in the 90s, 5 first-round picks, suspensions for the owner of the team for Glenn Taylor, as well as other punishments down the line. But this as tied into, again, an ongoing SEC DOJ investigation into fraud by this green bank, this climate change friendly company, whose biggest investor, or at least the most important, influential, notable investor, was Steve Ballmer, who put in $50 million of his own money. I mean, this is not merely a story about cap circumvention. This is now a question that the 7 sources I spoke to are asking. What else did Steve Ballmer know about?